Today's episode is brought to you by Slater's 50/50 and To a T Fitness. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. You have been forewarned. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast, the Jaws edition. Today we're talking about Jaws 3D. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. I am in Pacific Beach, baking in the closet during the times of COVID. With me is my co-host, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Tom's in the tent. Tom, how you doing?
Move the fish!
What's he saying? Like, I make the decisions, I sell the tickets, move the fish.
Exactly.
Well, as previously talked about in our last episode, Jaws 2, Jaws 3D, the 1983 film directed by Joe Alves, we both declare as a good movie. This is your favorite movie in the series.
Yes. There's a trend. This is the second film series we've done.
Yeah.
And in both of them, the third movie is my favorite movie.
Well, for the Superman series, it's inexplicable that your favorite's not Superman 2. For this series, you know, I might be wrong, Tom. I just might be wrong. Like, I love this movie so much. And I was trying to separate my mind from my heart. My heart says that this is the best movie sequel in the series. I just love everything about it. You know, it had a budget of $20.5 million. It made $45.5 million. Worldwide, $88 million. This is a respectable sequel. And yet it's constantly trashed.
Yeah, and I understand the reasons why it might be trashed. I mean,
there are plenty of reasons.
Nobody wants to see a disembodied fish head flying towards them while they're watching a movie.
Minute one.
You know, there's a limit to the amount of dolphins you can watch in a movie.
Correct. Even just even the Universal logo when the movie starts, there was something weird going on that was supposed to obviously be 3D, but like for me, it was almost seizure-inducing.
Well, I mean, if we're starting with the problems of the movie, and that's fine. I think the fact that, you know, this movie was shot as a 3D movie, but is now unavailable in that format, is a big problem. I spent the majority of the movie thinking that one of my contact lenses had fallen out. You can't undo that blurriness of the 3D shooting, at least not in the 80s you couldn't. And, you know, you have a number of effects that you can only imagine how they looked in 3D. But, you know, when 3D is taken out of the equation, you're either going, meh, or you're going, what?
Right. Well,
it's one of those two reactions. I will say the only one I will say is the best of both worlds, where it was obviously designed as a 3D image, but it works perfectly well in 2D cinema. Is when the harpoon is fired at the lens of the camera.
Yeah,
that is great filmmaking.
That was great, right? Here's the interesting thing. Joe Alves, who I think was a production assistant in the first two movies, he gets the director's chair in this one. Jaws 3D. Literally his only credit as a director.
I'm also interested in the company that provided the effects for this movie. It's a company called Private Stock Effects, which sounds like a very cheap, disreputable company that deals exclusively in blackmail.
That's fantastic. For those of you that have seen Jaws 3D, you kind of know what we're talking about. If you're old enough to have seen it in the theater, I can tell you, Tom, I saw this movie at Mann Theaters in Rancho Bernardo, Theater 3.
Lucky son of a bitch.
And I got myself, for 25 cents, a can of Tootsie Rolls that turns into a piggy bank when you're done with it. And these things still exist. This is what I remember of Jaws 3D and my experience with it.
And still, it's not your favorite movie in the franchise. What is wrong with you?
Well, you're the franchise. You're including the original.
Oh, that's true.
So
Yeah, but you know,
hold on there, cowboy.
those are the thoughts of a man who is working backwards from Jaws: The Revenge.
Oh wait, cowboy. This is an interesting fact that's not in
Yeah.
this movie, but I failed to mention in Jaws 2. One of my favorite notes I made about that movie was that apparently the shark had a saddle on it, so that they could
Huh.
so they could get point of view shots of the shark, where you kind of see the nose of the shark, and so some guy
Interesting.
would saddle up on the shark
Yeah.
and take
Well,
off.
we also talked about how we see way too much of that shark in Jaws 2, and here I think they make the right decision and they turn it back into a mysterious, seldom seen villain. There's still
You're right.
there's still way too many dolphins to compensate, but still, we get the right. They go back to they go back to the original in spirit by hiding the threat for a good chunk of the movie.
Yeah,
And it's really good
1983
that they do, because it's the worst it's ever looked. This prop, it's the worst it will ever look.
The shark?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I think I mean, it looks terrible, but
Yes.
we'll be talking about Jaws 4. I think
Yeah.
that's the worst of the bunch for my money.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Here's an interesting fact about the 3D. The director didn't really want to do a lot of 3D in it and presented a version of it with not a lot. And the studio was like, what? And they went back and shot, like, so I'm sure like these shots of the dragon and its tongue coming out when you go into the underwater sea,
Right.
thing. Those kind of shots, I'm quite sure were added after the
Yes.
fact.
Well, I mean, one of the real strengths of this movie, and it reminds me of Jurassic Park. They had this new technology they wanted to show, and the perfect setting for something like this is a theme park, because you can play up these effects, these gimmicks in a theme park, and it doesn't look kind of artificial, because you get these kind of pleasures, these scares, these spectacles. So setting it in SeaWorld,
I loved the SeaWorld setting.
yeah,
I think it's
it's
brilliant.
great. I mean, it's fascinating. It's fascinating watching it now, given what we know, what has happened since with SeaWorld. Because
Right.
it's hard not to think about Blackfish when there's a dolphin that's trapped and a shark dies in captivity. It's difficult to separate that from what we know
Yeah,
about
it's-
the controversy surrounding SeaWorld's treatment of
And the
wildlife.
damage they're doing, right?
Yeah. SeaWorld, the main one is right here in San Diego, although I believe this is the Florida SeaWorld that we're dealing with.
It is, yeah.
here.
It's the Florida SeaWorld. But, even like to your point about the Blackfish, even when you see Bess Armstrong as Catherine Morgan, when you first meet her, you meet her on top of Shamu, and you
Yes.
see that fin bending over, and you think, oh, that poor orca is sad,
Yeah, it's. I wonder. I mean, SeaWorld obviously agreed to have their trademark. Allowed to film on location, use their trademark. They had a liaison that's listed in the credits between the company and the producers of the film. But I don't know about you, Mike, but would you want to go to SeaWorld after seeing this movie? I mean,
I
clearly
probably
they thought
would.
okay. Well, I think
I'm
you
a
can go.
foolish man, though.
I think this movie is either vastly overselling SeaWorld, so it'll either result in disappointment, or you'd be too scared to go. I think either way, this is an advertisement.
I do think
for
it was a
SeaWorld that backfires.
fascinating idea that SeaWorld said, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, by all means.
because there's a lot of negative. I mean, aside from the fact that it seems to be run like a Nazi cult. I mean, I guess that didn't really bother people in the 80s too much.
Yeah, not as much.
As indeed
Yeah.
indeed it doesn't now. But I sort of thought, well, would this make me want to go to SeaWorld? Would this make me afraid of SeaWorld? Would I get to SeaWorld and think, okay, where are all these underwater tunnels that I've been promised with the skeletons and the,
Right.
it's an interesting bit of product placement, I
It's
think.
certainly a fascinating place to set the movie, regardless of what SeaWorld was thinking by agreeing to it. It's one of the things I really love about this movie, in addition to just the idea of keeping the Brodies a central part of the story.
Absolutely,
Um,
100% agree.
I think it's a great piece of writing that's being done.
Yes.
I think they talk about where they grew up just enough. I think they reference
Yeah.
the things that happened to them just enough. His brother goes to
Yeah.
school in Colorado. You know, the line
Yeah.
is, remember that shark attack I told you about when I
Mm-hmm.
was a kid? Well, that's why my brother lives in Colorado. That's literally all you need to understand more about this man who's
Yeah.
now going to be stuck in water with sharks and a woman he's in love with.
Yeah, there's a genuine sense that we're working through the psychodrama of Jaws 2 here. That
Right.
it matters in a way that, going back to our our last episode, nothing in Superman 2 affected Superman 3.
Right.
But here, yeah, it's a continuation of the story. I mean, there's a major bit of recasting of both Mike and Sean Brody. We have Dennis Quaid, who is kind of leaning towards stardom as Mike Brody. Very
Yeah.
helpfully, he wears a name tag with Mike Brody on for a good chunk of the movie, which really helps
Just
you.
so we're not lost.
Just because he in no way resembles either the actor who played him before or who will play him later.
Later, right, exactly.
So this and Sean seems way too old, physically for the kid that we last saw in Jaws 2. But
Time has passed, Tom. Time has
but
passed.
not enough time in if we're going by realism. But so that's a bit of a problem. But yeah, they talk back to Jaws 2 in a way that's very, very satisfying. But like you say, it's not excessive. It doesn't slow down this movie in any way with exposition. They do a nice little beach scene where they get all the exposition out
Yeah.
in a few minutes. And it's really nice. It is I think it's a shame that they don't follow up with Sean at the end of the movie. Like, we don't really get a sense of whether he gets over.
Right. Yeah. He's left in limbo. He's left in shark fear limbo for the
believe me.
audience.
Believe me, Jaws the Revenge gives us the answer, but in a dramatic fashion.
Oh, yeah.
But still,
First 3 minutes.
first 3 minutes, yeah, he's a goner. But I agree. I think I'm like, oh, okay, so Jaws 2 matters. It's not like we're just doing different for different sake.
Right.
Which I like.
And there's,
really appreciate that.
so, we're talking about the things we like, the things that work. You mentioned the fish head that appears in 3D. I mean, this movie, in that way, kind of announces its a presence of authority really quickly. Like,
I
the
love
the chomping of that head fish, and then the red on black Jaws lettering that is separated by Jaws teeth that comes together to announce Jaws 3D.
And
It's kind of deliciously delightful.
I think one of the reasons that 3D keeps coming back and yet at the same time just can't work for all movies is that there's no room for subtlety.
Yeah.
Very early on in the movie, we have a 3D model of a 3D model.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a 3D model of the park filmed in 3D. So this is like, you just have to come out of the gates all guns blazing. The disembodied fish head. I think I wrote in my notes that, without the 3D, or maybe even with the 3D, this is an unsuccessful effect. But I just love how bullish and weird it is. I love the fact that I'm staring at this disembodied fish head for so long.
A really long time. Yes.
Yeah,
And then it's
you know,
followed by you're introducing sort of the park and the idea of SeaWorld, and this woman is training the new recruits, and she says the thing that's most important here is neatness, courtesy towards others, and above all, your southern grace.
yeah, and she also says, we've got the quote written here: if you show any cheek, you'll be back shoveling French fries.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got this kind of like conservative reaction almost against the kind of the permissive sexual permissiveness of the first couple of movies,
Right.
Because that metaphorically, that's what those sharks were feeding on, was that sort of like teenage horniness.
They were
And
hungry
here
for
it's
it.
like, and here it seems it's like, okay, so we're not going to do that now. We're gonna talk about the kids growing up into responsible adults, and I'm just amazed how Mike has got his act together. He's not. I was like, okay, so he got a job at Seagull. That's pretty good for a kid who wouldn't even get a summer job in the last
Right,
movie.
yeah. Who was so
But then-
lazy.
But then it's revealed. He's like the kingpin of this park. He spent 2 years
Building the whole thing.
building the whole thing, and he's in a relationship. He's in the
And a
the
good
mo-
relationship. That's another thing I love about this
zero
movie.
conflict in this relationship. Zero tension. These guys were born
But they
to be
like
together.
acknowledge that they have problems, acknowledge things they have to talk about. This idea that it's a perfect relationship is not true. Like he's going to go to Venezuela. Is she going to go with him? Is he, going to not take the
Yeah.
job? There are these things. It always struck me, even as a kid when I was watching this movie. Wow, they seem like they really like each other.
And yet there is this great character consistency, whether it was intended or not. That the Brody kids are still fucking liars and manipulators.
Yep. Yeah, those Brody children sure are pieces of shit. We're going to get into more Jaws 3D right after this. We'll be back. Look, people, we're living in strange times. We know that, don't we? Of course we do. People don't even know what to do with themselves. We're getting stir crazy. Well, get outside and get yourself some great food, I say. You need to go to Slater's 50/50 in Point Loma's Liberty Station. It's time to treat yourself to booze, to beer, to burgers, and more. They have their full menu, people. Their full menu, I say. How many restaurants do you know that are doing that? Most places are doing a quarter of their menu, probably. Some might be doing a half. Maybe a few have got 3/4 of the menu. But Slater's 50/50 has their full menu, including their signature 50/50 patty. It's half ground beef. It's half ground bacon. It's 100% delicious. What more could you possibly ask? Worried about social distancing? Well, it is in place, people. Tables are separated, and the staff will always be seen wearing masks. You're out of excuses. Get off your keister and come on down to Liberty Station's own Slater's 50/50. Indoor dining available, outdoor dining available. Bring the family, bring your dog. Come enjoy the normal again. Good day to you. I said good day. And we're back. We're here talking about Jaws 3D. What I'd like to talk about right now with you, Tom, is the idea. One of the things I love about this movie is this idea of two sharks. None of the other films in the series do this. This is fantastic to me. I love the idea of baby shark and mama shark. The only female antagonist shark, apparently. All the others are guys.
That's really interesting. I never put it together, so there's probably a copyright claim for the baby shark people here, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
The Washington Nationals are all over it.
so. I mean, we talked in the previous movie how Jaws, the kind of the revenge-seeking shark, was sort of set up. This idea that this shark was following the Brodies was somewhat set up in Jaws 2, or at least the possibility was entertained. And here,
And it's not directly talked about here, but there's
Yeah.
this idea of, Mike Brody saying, "Are you kidding me? Like with my family,
yeah, so
everything that's happened to me, they're killers."
yeah, he says they're murderers, but also that
Murderers,
we
yeah.
establish the fact that sharks, do want to take revenge, because a shark dies in captivity at SeaWorld. The baby shark dies in captivity.
Yeah.
Because seemingly they put it in a tide pool where people put their hands in, for which is
very strange.
I've been to
a
SeaWorld.
tiny
I know
tide pool is
exactly where that
strange.
part of SeaWorld is, and you can totally put your hand in there and have like a fish eat the dead skin off your hands. So that shark would just kill whoever was anyway. And so the mother's taking revenge. So we're already getting this idea that the sharks do take things personally, and that that mentally they can make the jump of, I'm gonna get revenge for you killing my child. Because it's not just I'm gonna attack someone as they're killing the child. This is after the fact. They're like they're coming in like Rambo style, Rambo Last Blood style. They're literally underground.
Right. The other thing that it kind of delights me about all the Jaws sequels is that these sharks are never not hungry.
Yeah.
Including after they've just eaten. It doesn't matter how much they've eaten. There's this fantastic scene. It's a completely absurd scene where these two guys are trying to steal coral. But
this scene baffled me. I had no idea what was going on.
But you don't know what they're doing for like the first 5 minutes that they're there. You're just thinking to yourself, what the hell are these two clowns doing? And then they announce that they're stealing coral.
Yes.
I love that, that one of them says something, this is the best coral in the world. Like, you could get $200 for...
Right.
But they don't say for how much. But in that scene, this shark like eats a light, eats one man, eats another man, and then eats their raft.
Right.
I mean, this shark is hungry forever.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to me. Like midway through the film is very conflicted about the sort of animal rights conservationist aspects of. Because the initial idea is we keep the shark in captivity because we want to save it, we want to study it, and by the end of the movie they're just blowing sharks to smithereens. So
well, that's the thing too, is there's this strange argument between, and it's not even so much study. Like she wants to study it, obviously. Bess Armstrong's character wants to study it. But the way she convinces them is, look, like we can, keep talking about it. We can be feeding it. We can be nursing it back to health. And you can constantly get pictures. It'll just go on for years and years and years and years. Completely ignoring the fact that even at this time, everybody was saying you can't really keep a great white in captivity.
Right. Well, I mean, SeaWorld took a long time. In real life,
but
SeaWorld took a long time to get that message anyway, so it's not unrealistic.
But putting that aside, you have the other side of the coin, which is, what's that character's name? I'm going to move my notes just so I can remember. It's Philip Fitzroy.
Yes, Philip Fitzroy. Yeah, let's talk
about him. I love that
him.
He says, they die magnificently. like how many great whites has this guy killed?
Yeah, so he's there with his cameraman, who is I think he's supposed to be South African. The actor is actually
Jack Tate.
British.
Is the character
played a lot of gangsters in British movies.
You would know him, I assume, better than I would.
Yeah. He's in The Long Good.
But I love them both in this movie. I love their relationship. Yeah. I love everything about these two guys.
Yeah, and it's
except that they seem to be on murderous rampages of all sea life. But
yeah, it's a really sort of strange. They're set up very early and then they kind of disappear. Another great thing that I like, and again, this is the sort of, I think this movie has a lot that then Jurassic Park would then follow up with. Actually, I think it's very influential on Jurassic Park, which of course is Spielberg. I mean, Spielberg would have seen this movie for sure, or some of it, before he was like, no. But we get it. Something happens late on in the movie where the shark opens its own cage. To escape. And it reminded me of the velociraptors in Jurassic Park who learn how to open doors. So we're actually...
the mother shark is just super smart. She knows to sit in a filtration pipe and not move forward, but just, open her mouth and let Also, so there's this idea of she's just sitting in the tube and letting water come through her gills, but also in all the Jaws movies, these sharks seem to be able to swim backwards an awful lot,
Right.
which I'm not sure is a thing.
I think we're getting, like this is a jump the shark moment of Jaws. Is the when once the cage is out, once the shark has released itself in the cage, as in Jurassic Park, when it's luckily it's later on in the movie, but after the point where the Velociraptor opens the door, you can't take anything else seriously. And it's the same here, but it's just interesting to me that those two movies have pretty much identical scenes, and they're both kind of Spielberg connected movies. But if you're watching these movies in succession, which I think is totally the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
Jaws when you start Jaws the Revenge with this idea of this shark that can think. And go into waters.
Well, it's not so much. Well, we'll
get
into
that.
But
it's got this highly evolved sense of revenge and hyper focused. Yeah. It's like, well, the last film did kind of set that up, really.
Yeah,
it didn't come out of nowhere. But it is
I can't disagree.
But in and of itself, it is ludicrous. And we nearly get a kind of Godzilla style shark versus dolphin moment as well in the movie.
There's a little sticking of the nose into the shark's gills and saying, "You stop that! That's my friend."
It's trying to and it's throwing in a lot of good sequel stuff. Just trying it all out within the vehicle of this theme park. Where it doesn't really matter because
I feel like they do ring the theme park thing out really well. Like, I mean, the water skiers are attacked, bumper boats are attacked.
There's a man-made beach which everyone has to clear at one point when the shark gets in the water.
Yeah,
and so you have this kind of really
come hell or high water too. Like you're gonna get punched off that beach if you have to.
It's like a really it's this weird sort of reenactment of the similar scenes from the previous two movies when the beaches had to be cleared, but it's a man-made beach in a theme park, which I think is hilarious, and that sort of gets to the root of how this film came into being. Because like the original idea was that this would be a parody. They wanted the producers of the movie wanted this to be a kind of Superman 3 self-spoofing.
No, it was even beyond that.
Even beyond that. Agreed.
I have it in my notes here. Mm-hmm. The original title to this movie was going to be National Lampoon's Jaws 3 People's Zero.
Yes.
That's how silly they wanted this movie to
And there are remnants of that. I think when they're clearing the man-made beach, I thought this is the closest that this movie comes to fulfilling the original vision of this film as a spoof of itself.
Interestingly enough, this is the highest grossing 3D movie until Spy Kids 3D. That's a long time.
It is. I get that so much of this movie is sold on the fact that it's 3D, and so the first big wave of 3D is the 1950s, and this was like the Renaissance of that
sort of a wave. Yeah, you got,
and then we
Friday the 13th Part 3. There's a lot of that.
There was capitalizing on the third movie in the franchise to make it 3D. So it's I can totally get I look at that and I think that would look great in 3D as it is. A little strange. So I can totally understand why, it's a new technology, and we made the same mistake a few years ago where we were like, 3D is back, and then we realized it can only apply to a small handful of very carefully tailored movies.
Yeah. Here's one thing I keep wondering about this movie. They do so much stuff. They try to save people. They hunt the baby great white shark. They're doing this all at night.
Yes.
So much more difficult to see underwater at night, even if you turn the lights on,
There's going back to those two shark hunter photographer guys.
Yeah.
Fitzroyce and Mustache. Mustache Man.
And Mustache British.
Mustache British. It's just
Hang on, I've got it here. What's Jack Tate? P.H. Moriarty as Jack Tate.
And it's there are the screenplay is actually pretty good, co-written by Richard Matheson of Twilight Zone fame and I Am Legend fame.
Yeah.
So it hangs together pretty well. But you introduce the same thing happens with Louis Gossett Jr. You introduce them, the film forgets about them for long periods of the film. And then they suddenly appear in these crucial, critical moments. And this...
Yeah, but he's so fantastic, you can just, you can survive underwater on one scene of Lou Gossett Jr. for, for easily 30 minutes. Not a problem.
He has the...
That's how amazing
he has the best
is.
introduction of any character in these three movies. Seen just watching people on jet skis through binoculars and laughing, with no indication of who this man is or what relationship it is to the movie.
Right.
He's just this, I'm watching things through binoculars kind of guy.
We were referencing earlier his line about who he is and who he is to the park. And the line, I have the full line here. Look, I run the park, I sell the tickets, I make the decisions. Move the fish.
Just in case you hadn't figured
So
that out
good.
by this point. And there's a lot, and there are, there's some political problems with this film beyond the conservationist stuff. There's a moment in which Louis Gossett Jr. Turns to someone in the control room and says, "Listen, nephew." Yeah. And I'm thinking, we're back at a time when if a black person is prominently cast,
but he
in
really
a movie,
separates Neff from you.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
If a black person is kind of cast prominently in a movie, you have to if more than one black person is cast prominently in a movie, they have to be related, and I just think that's awful. And they make the same mistake in Jaws: The Revenge as well. But it's like there is no Louis Gossett Jr. First of all, he transcends race. He's a phenomenal actor.
Everything.
It's like we don't need to even talk about the fact that he's an African American doing all this. It should have been a silent, it's a non-conversation, and they make it into a conversation. I'm thinking, oh god, that's such a shame.
Right, and I kind of equate it to my idea of Terrence Stamp in Superman 2. Like, I think there's plenty of things in this movie that I just love and is great. But to me, like, this movie, as little as he is in the movie, it stands on the broad shoulders of Lou Gossett Jr. just being amazing in this movie.
Really.
And
he's
the idea
he's kind of in his own movie.
Everybody was in danger during trying to get the great white baby, and he said, "Did we get the film?"
Yeah.
And they say, and Dennis Quaid goes, "Hey, Calvin, I'm fine." Or he says, Philip's fine, Catherine's fine, the crew's fine, I'm fine too. And then he finally says, "Is everybody okay down there?" It did look pretty scary. I mean, like, you just get such a great sense with as little as he's given, like, everything about that character. Yeah. And he's fantastic. And the line, "You talking about some damn shark's mother," is like an all-time great line. It's fucking amazing. I love it.
Yeah, he harks towards Sam Jackson in Snakes on a Plane. I think he's got those kind of like, here's what this movie is about in one line.
And that's the thing. He knows exactly what this movie is.
And I think the acting is phenomenal. Even though he looks nothing like Mike Brody does or will, Dennis Quaid is excellent. He's in that kind of... I mean, I know they're in Florida, but he is seriously sweaty in this movie. And I think of him as a very sweaty actor. I think of Inner Space. And there's a drunk scene where not only is he drunk, but he's covered in sweat. And it's just... I just think that's it's such a great star performance in this. Leah Thompson, who, will go on to be...
Might be her debut.
Yeah, I think it was her debut. And she'll go on to be sequel royalty.
Right,
but here she is in this and so it's a star maker, and Louis Gossett Jr., Oscar winner. So it's a star making film in lots of ways. They all come out of this very strongly.
Agreed. Well, we're gonna take
although
one
I do
short
believe,
break.
just as a kind of trivia note, Dennis Quaid was once asked about this movie, and
I know this.
He
line.
said, "I was in Jaws what?"
Yeah. I was in Jaws what now?
But that doesn't show on screen. It's
so great.
He's really commanding the screen.
All right. We're going to take one more quick break, and then we're going to come and wrap up Jaws 3D. We're going to talk about the ending. We're going to find out whether or not Tom loves it or hates it right after this. Stay tuned. Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. And we're back. We're here talking about Jaws 3D at the Everything Sequel podcast. I'm Mike Shantz. This is Tom Stewart with me. Tom, let's talk about the end of Jaws 3D.
Which one?
The shark attack end.
Okay, so there's first of all, they have to they return to a plot point that clearly the screenwriters had forgotten about, or the filmmakers have forgotten about, in which there's a bunch of people trapped in these underwater tunnels who we forget about for a long time, to the point where I just assume that they've been rescued off screen by this point, and then to find out they're still there. Philip Fitzroyce, is it? Goes inside the shark and
well,
blows
not
it up
exactly.
from
I
the
mean, he gets
inside?
eaten, and his torso is stuck in his teeth.
Oh, that's right. He's so we think he's totally forgot
holding
that.
a grenade. But the other funny part is like you can just clearly see like a hand made out of clay or whatever it is holding that grenade on a close-up shot, which is really funny. So essentially what happens is the mother shark gets loose out of the filtration pipe. Fitzroyce is dead. There's a great scene, but his partner Jack Tate, emoting about the death of his friend, which is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Brody, meanwhile, is trying to fix the pipes outside of the amusement park attraction so that these people can get out. And then the shark comes for him and Bess Armstrong, who is watching his back. And they have to get back to the control room. My favorite, maybe not my favorite part, but a part that I just find hilarious is the shark putting its teeth somehow in the door.
Right, yeah. And the culmination of this, that I think the filmmakers said, let's put all of our worst ideas in one scene. Slow motion, 3D camera, glass breaking effects, all happening simultaneously. And I approve. I think that's this idea of like the camera is breaking,
right,
as well as the.
And then so the shark is so fierce that it goes through the glass, and the room fills up with water. Luckily, Bouchard can save his not his nephew, but his nephew's a goner, but he saves the woman, and he gets out. One thing we haven't talked about, and we can talk about with the death of his nephew, is this is the most violent in the series. You see plenty of blood when shark attacks happen, and then you have the added effect of the crunching of bones. And that is prominent throughout the movie.
And the explosion of the shark, which it's like a level of gore.
Hilarious is what it is.
Kind of on par with a slash. It's like a slasher movie suddenly.
Yeah,
there's so much gore and body parts.
Kind of slow motion ahead, you will see that part of the shark's entrails are actually a leather ET doll. like the legs of a leather ET
Oh, that's
doll.
great.
And I remember as a kid, like with seeing the 3D,
yeah.
I was like, I mean, if you're gonna blow stuff up, like why doesn't it just come right out of the screen? That would be so cool. And then they do it in Jaws 3D, and even as an 11 or 12-year-old, I remember thinking, oh, that's why you don't do it, because it looks like shit. you know.
Yeah. But again, like I just think about the grandiosity of that. I mean, the shark explodes in a way
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
like the Death Star from Star Wars. It's like it really is like this is a big moment. We were talking about one shark, and then it's amazing how the jaws of the shark line up
Right.
exactly in front of the camera.
And again, he
Like
sticks his head right in
perfectly.
the window and
Um,
doesn't seem to need to move forward to survive.
Right.
He's just going to stay stuck in the window. They have these terrible shots of the shark outside the window, just seeing everything but his head. And
But
yet, for me,
yeah.
like this scene
But
still
it's okay.
works. And I think what sets it, like what makes
Yes.
me hold my breath in that scene more than anything, is the quick cuts that are going on for in the editing and from the director. And then also the music. The music is just like heart pumping by the time that shark blows up. I mean, it ratchets it up in a way that's for me is just fantastic. Like I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a movie that's as extreme as this needs to have that kind
Yeah,
of
for some reason the silliness, the
ridiculous moment
like
at
the
the end of
real
it all.
serious absurdity.
Yeah.
For whatever reason works for me. Like it's like it belongs there.
Yeah. And I think the mistake is sort of like, I mean, I guess you've got to see what happens to these characters, but Brody surviving, and then we need to make
okay.
sure that the dolphins are still okay. And it's like I don't care about those dolphins. I really don't. In general, I like
Yeah.
dolphins, but I don't care about these dolphins.
You weren't
These-
along
these,
for the conservationist theme of Jaws 3D. And the last shot of yes!
Well, I just
freeze
didn't.
frame.
There are moments in these films that are so dolphin heavy that I could have been watching an episode of Flipper. And so and probably I don't know. I mean, this is a big claim. But probably one of the worst 3D effects in the movie is saved for
Yeah.
the final shot of dolphins
Midair.
flying in, flying in midair and doing tricks, and I can't even tell that they're. It's like, is that a seal or is that a dolphin? What is that? And so it's a bit of a damp squib to sort of end the movie on after you've had
Rousing
this,
good time, I would say.
this extraordinary cascade of body parts flying at the camera. And but
Let's
yeah,
face
no,
it,
I
this
mean,
movie's fucking great. Ladies and gentlemen, Jaws 3D,
It
go
is.
check it out. If you don't like it, by all means get your head checked. This movie's fantastic. That's it for Jaws 3D. My name is Michael Shantz. With me, as always, is Tom Stewart. Next episode, coming up, Jaws the Revenge. You ready, Tom? I certainly hope so. We'll see you next time.